Hello everyone, my name is Saib Dokul and today I'll be presenting my Lab 5 project. In this lab, I performed a penetration test against Meta's Plus Tibble 2 virtual machine using Kali Linux. After identifying several vulnerabilities, I implemented improvements and evaluated how those changes help strengthen the system. Okay, so my plan. So before starting, I created an isolated lab environment using virtual machines. I found a target IP address, took a snapshot in case something went wrong, performed multiple vulnerability scans, and documented my findings and selected the highest risk issue to fix. So, why pen testing is useful? So, penetration testing is important because it shows what a real attacker could do if they gain access to a system. It helps organizations prioritize security fixes, verify that existing protections are working, and meet security compliance requirements like PCI, DSS, and HIPAA or HIPAA. So moving on to part A2. So if something goes wrong, if something goes wrong during my penetration test, it's important to document problems instead of hiding them. So in my lab, the normal service command didn't work because the operating system is very old. So I used a different command instead, the command right here. And I also discovered that the ZAP wasn't installed. The OWASP ZAP wasn't installed. So I documented that was a huge issue too. And I continued using other tools instead of that. Now the target IP address. So the first step was identifying the target machine's IP address. Using the IP address command, I found that Metasploitable 2 was running at this IP address here, 192.168.56.102, and this became the target for every security scan I performed. Then moving on, this is the Nmap scan results. So my first scan was Nmap using the SV option. It discovered 23 open ports, including FTP, Telnet, Samba, and OpenRoot Shell. These services are known to contain serious security vulnerabilities and provide multiple entry points for attackers. Next, we have the Nmap aggressive scan. So next, I ran an aggressive Nmap scan using um, the A command. So the this collected additional information, including anonymous FTP access, a disabled SMB signing, and operating system details. These findings show how much information an attacker could gather before attempting the exploit. So all of this information here could be easily exploited. And here's the Enketo scan results. So Enketo was focused on the web server. It showed 27 vulnerabilities, and it included outdated versions and exposed my admin, my PHP, my admin, missing security headers, and backup files containing passwords. These issues increase the risk of web-based attacks. Next, moving on, we have the WAP issue, which was not installed. So I intended to use the ZAP, sorry. I intended to use the ZAP as another web application scanner, but it wasn't installed on my Kali virtual machine. So instead of skipping this issue, I documented it here, and the problem was it just wouldn't load. So this demonstrates the importance of accurately reporting testing limitations. So this was a testing limitation that I tried to load it, and it just wouldn't load for me. So next we have the Next, we have the risk assessment. So the risk assessment is after reviewing all the findings, I ranked the vulnerability by risk level. The backdoors Samba vulnerability, Telnet, FTP, and default passwords were considered very high risk because they could allow attackers to gain full control of the system. Overall, this machine would not be safe on a production network. Gap analysis. So, the gap analysis compared what the system should have versus what it actually had. The machine was running too many unnecessary services, outdated software, default passwords, no firewall, and exposed admin tools. And these security gaps increased very significantly as we went on with the testing. So, recommended fixes. So, recommend fixes was to improve security. I recommend disabling unnecessary services, enabling a firewall by replacing all default passwords, using SSH instead of Telnet and FTP, protecting my admin, and ideally rebuilding machine using modern supported operating systems, and of course, not using a default password. So expected results. So after making these changes, I expected fewer open ports, fewer vulnerabilities, and stronger network production. Running another Nmap or Nessus scan would verify the hardening changes were successful. So scanning again would prove it actually worked. Now, the change. So what changes did I do? So the first security improvement I made was stopping the FTP service. FTP sends data without encryption, so disabling it immediately reduced one major vector. So that was done here. You can see by the OK signage here. Next was the password change. So this password was MSF admin, which was the default password. So I then made my own unique password. Since the credentials are basically publicly known, you could Google them, so it makes it really easy to get into the system. Some changes 3 and 4. So my third change was enabling the firewall to block unnecessary network traffic. My fourth change was stopping some services which disabled several ports. And together, these changes reduced attack surface even further. Why I picked these changes? So all four obviously is free. So it was simple to implement and it provided immediate security benefits. They addressed the highest risk vulnerability, the most basic ones people would even try in the first place, which you should consider than going into something more challenging. Now, the actual results. So overall, the changes worked as expected, although I also learned about some limitations. Some would require a strong reboot. The firewall will still need an SSH rule, and the ZAP could not be tested because it wasn't even installed. Like I said, there was some software issues, it looks like. Maybe on the image wasn't installed properly, and that's what causes ZAP to not be installed properly. In conclusion, this lab helped me understand the complete penetration testing process, from planning and scanning to risk analysis and system hardening. It also showed me that documenting mistakes and verify changing is also just as important as finding vulnerabilities. Thank you for listening to my presentation. And